Welcome back to Inside College Basketball Now with Jon Rothstein. Pleased to be joined by Nebraska head coach Fred Hoiberg. And Fred, welcome. What was the menu like for the Hoiberg family Christmas?
You know what? We kind of were all over the place. Our son Jack is coaching with the Spurs, so we went down to San Antonio and got to spend a couple days with him, which was awesome. We got to see him play Oklahoma City in a great game in San Antonio, and then we actually went back to Ames. Both my wife and my parents are still there, so got to spend a little time with them, and then back for practice on the 26th.
Well, that is obviously an adventurous couple of days for Christmas, but like you said, you have tentacles all over the place. Hard to believe, Fred, that your kids are grown and adults right now. I remember when they were young twins on the ladder with you when you won the Big 12 tournament at Iowa State. But nevertheless, life moves on, but we all have great memories. And one of the great memories of you during your tenure at Iowa State was when you guys won a big game. You put on a hip-hop song in the locker room and you broke out in a dance move that went viral. Have you ever thought about recreating that during this 12-0 start?
No, John, those days are over. I was young back then, John. Now that I've gotten older, those days are behind me.
Well, fair enough, but the million-dollar question is, how is Nebraska 12-0?
Well, I'll say this: we've had a very unselfish group. These guys have been all about the right things. It's been an absolute pleasure to coach these guys. There's no distractions with this team. They show up on time. They're ready to work every day. Very rarely do we have to stick a foot up their butt. They're just ready to go when the whistle blows, and that's certainly a luxury for any of us in this position, because certainly we've had teams the other way where you got to light a fire under them, and they show up late, that type of thing. So it's been really good. These guys have really bought into the culture of our program, and we've won some really good games. The thing I've been most impressed with, John, is how they've handled adversity. That's the one thing, especially in this league, as we continue on, you have to be able to handle that the right way. And so far, our guys have done a really good job of that. We've had a couple games where we've dug ourselves a hole, and we just found a way to keep our composure and keep our poise. And that's one thing with this group. We've got age, we've got experience. Getting Rick Mast back on the floor obviously was huge. You saw how much we missed him a year ago, and that's just opened up things for everybody, not just with the three-point shooting, but we've been one of the top teams in the country in converting in the paint and at the rim. And, a lot of that just has to do with Rink's playmaking ability. Burke was unbelievable at a triple-double in our last game after Rink had done that earlier in the season. But these guys, again, the unselfishness, the assist-to-turnover ratio with this team has been as good as anybody in the country. And obviously, we're going to have to continue on with that to have the success moving forward, which, listen, we've got one more non-conference game. Need to make sure we have a great performance. And then heading into the start of, or the restart, I should say, of Big Ten play with Michigan State on the 2nd.
Fred, when did you know that this team had a chance to be really good?
Well, I guess in the first workout when we did a shooting drill and I saw the ball going through the hoop, that was one thing where, we really wanted to address that. We did not shoot the three nearly as well a year ago as we did the previous season when we led the Big Ten in three-pointers made. That led to an NCAA tournament berth. And, this team has some similarities. Obviously, a big part of that is getting Rink back, but the addition of Price Sanford, getting Jamarcus back in our program, having some of the veteran guys that have been in this program for a long time, with Cale Jacobson, with Sam, with Burke now going into multi-years, wearing a Husker uniform. So, just having guys, Oogie, we're hoping to get him back on the floor soon. We're going to need his big body once Big Ten play starts. So, I've really liked, again, the way that these guys have come together, the chemistry that they've shown. When you have that and you've got some skill on the floor, certainly you can win some games.
Well, you referenced the shot-making ability of this team, and that's obviously an impressive weapon, but the defense has also shined, especially, Fred, when you had those back-to-back wins against Creighton and Wisconsin at home. I'm curious, as a college head coach, have you ever had two back-to-back defensive performances like you did against Creighton and Wisconsin?
You know what? Our guys they've been really dialed in on that end. And, I give my assistant coach, Nate Lenzer, a lot of credit for the game plan that he puts together on the defensive end of the floor. And we had a full week to prepare for that Creighton game. It was actually very similar to when they came into Pinnacle Bank Arena a couple of years ago. We had that week and we just didn't show up that game, and they handed it to us. This year, we were so dialed in in that prep, and we followed the game plan to a T and ended up having a big win against our rival. And then you follow that up with your first Big Ten game with 2 days of preparation against a Wisconsin team that runs a continuity offense, but they got a million wrinkles. So it's more of a mental, conceptual type preparation. And then our guys went out and maybe played our most complete game of the year on both sides of the floor. And then you get 2 days to prepare at the end of the week on the Saturday for Illinois on the road, a top 15 team. And, it's more of an offensive game. They're so talented, deep, physical. Brad's one of the great coaches in this business. And I really thought that we went out and executed what we had to do. Price Sanford obviously went on a heater. He had 26 in the first half. And then Rink really got it going in the second. We just continued to make plays. And again, did not fold when Illinois made their run in a great building and an incredible atmosphere. We just kept swinging and found a way, to hit Jamarcus in that last play. And he made obviously the shot of the year for us. So, it's 3 different, preps in short time for those 2 Big Ten games. And we're going to have that again going into Michigan State on a 2-day prep, when we get back into Big Ten play at Pinnacle Bank Arena on the 2nd.
Fred, given the momentum that you had after beating Creighton and Wisconsin, and given the fact that you guys were all of a sudden a hunted team coming off those 2 blowout victories, and given the fact that Illinois was a top 15 and Champaign is such a tough place to win, was the win at Illinois the best win you've had so far at Nebraska?
Oh, I don't know, John. I know it was a great one. It certainly could be a confidence builder for our team as we continue on to know that you can go in and win in a hostile environment. And, again, our guys, they handled that. We knew we had to get off to a good start. And, kind of those early afternoon games, it's so important when you're on the road. If you dig a hole in a place like that, it's damn near impossible to get out of it. So, just getting off to a really good start. Riding the hot hand with Price in the first half. And then I thought our movement was outstanding, John. We had great cutting. You can't get stagnant. You can't take quick shots in those type of games on the road. And I really thought our offense clicked. And that was definitely our best offensive performance of the season.
Now, before Illinois, before Creighton, before Wisconsin, your team played really, really good basketball in Kansas City, beat New Mexico, and then won a really close game against Kansas State in Kansas City. And in the crucial moments of that game, Sam Hoiberg, your son, was on the free throw line with the task of making clutch free throws to seal the game. Forget about as a coach. What was it like as a parent in that moment?
Well, I didn't really think about it as a parent, to be honest with you. I was proud of Sam. We put the ball in his hands on that last play, made a little handoff to Price. Both defenders ran at him, and that opened up a lane for Sam to go in there and get the offensive rebound. And I thought he did a really good job of drawing contact on that play. And it was one of the most unique situations I've ever had in coaching, John. It was 0.6 seconds on the clock, and we told Sam to miss it on purpose. And then all of a sudden they go back to the monitor after the play and they put 1.2 seconds on the clock. It would completely change the strategy in that situation, but it is what it is. And, Sam got up there, knocked down the first one, and, I'm confident he would have made the second one had there been over a second left. But, we found a way to get it, defended the last play that the Kansas State had. But those are 2 good wins. You see what New Mexico is doing, John. I really think that team is going to be at the top of their league. And then finding a way to beat Kansas State in really a pro, Wildcat arena down in Kansas City. So 2 really good wins for us. And again, a confidence builder for our team.
Regardless of what you've been doing in basketball, whether you were a player, whether you're in the front office with the Timberwolves, Iowa State as the head coach, the Bulls with the head coach, the time constraints on your job have obviously always been immense. Considering that, what is it like after all these years to be with your son every day at practice and going through this journey with your son, Sam?
Yeah, I know I'm going to look back at this time when my days are over in this profession and just realize how special it was to be around Sam. First of all, John, I can't believe how fast it's gone. He's in his 5th year. And, the really cool thing now is identical twin brother is on our staff as a grad assistant. He went to TCU. Had a great time down there for 4 years. And now, I'm trying to talk him out of getting into coaching, John, but for whatever wants to get into it. So, to have those guys back together and Charlie has really helped Sam, from a mentality standpoint. He does things, they have the same DNA, so he can get into his head better than I can, and he's been really good for him as we've gone throughout this season. So it is special. It's great for for my wife, for our parents to be able to see this special time in the bond that we have. So my wife gets mad at those guys. They don't come home very often for dinner, and I tell her I'm getting a little sick of them. So, but no, it's pretty cool, John.
How did a coach who won with great offense at Iowa State become comfortable fighting in the mud in the Big Ten?
Yeah, you know what? It's just you got to get the right guys in your program, and we have, again, in this day of college basketball, college sports, it's a very unique time. And one thing we've really tried to prioritize is staying old. And 2 years ago we had the oldest team in the Big Ten. Last year we had good experience. Found a way to finish off that season the right way when we winning the championship and the tournament in Las Vegas, which was really important. It helped us, springboarded us into recruiting. We got 4 guys signed when we were down there playing, which is crazy that we're recruiting while we're still playing. But at the same time, Cale Jacobson really emerged and, showed he was a rotational piece. And he's been phenomenal for us and helped us win some games. And he really established himself in that tournament last year. So that was very beneficial for us. And then this year, not only staying old, but getting the skill level that fits the system on both ends of the floor. And, we're not the best individual defenders, but we have a system in place that really helps protect. We've done a great job of limiting rim attempts. We're going to have to continue on with that in Big Ten play and obviously defend the 3 as well as we can. But, we've got a defensive system. Again, Coach Lenzer's done a phenomenal job on that side of the ball. And again, these guys have bought into it.
Fred, when did you know that what worked at Iowa State wasn't necessarily going to work at Nebraska?
Well, I don't know if I look at it that way, John. You still got to get the skill on the floor and the experience and guys that fit your program, fit your culture. And, what we've done really the last 3 years, excuse me, I look at a couple of years ago, John, we lost 2 starters in January with Juwan Gary and Emmanuel Bandamel. I'm convinced that was an NCAA tournament team had we stayed healthy that year. Now, that being said, we found a way to finish off the season the right way. And that really gave Jamarcus and it gave Sam opportunity to go out there and really establish themselves as quality players. And then, we make the tournament the next year. And then if you put Rink Mass on last year's team, that may be as good a team as any in the history of the Nebraska basketball program. So, this year we'll see how we finish. We've obviously passed the test to this point in our season, but we've got a long way to go. And if we want to continue on, we're going to have to, follow the same recipe that's given us some success.
Fred, you referenced last year, even without Rink Mass in mid-February last year, you were 17-9 before obviously some final games down the stretch. How much do you still look at last year and the way that it ended as a missed opportunity?
Yeah, John, we lost a lot of tough games. We lost 3 one-possession games in a row in completely different ways. And you got to find a way to do that. We didn't protect home court the way we needed to a year ago. We actually won more road games last year than we did the previous season, but we didn't protect home court like we did where we went 10-0 in Pinnacle Bank Arena in league 2 seasons ago. So, we talk a lot about that. We did a good job against Wisconsin protecting home, and then we went out and stole one on the road against Illinois. But you have to win at home in this league if you want to play in the postseason.
Nebraska is a program that has never won an NCAA tournament game, which brings on a unique challenge for a head coach. How invigorating is it to be the head coach at a place where you're literally writing your own history?
Yeah, it's been great for me. I was born in Lincoln. My grandfather on my mom's side was the head basketball coach at Nebraska for 9 seasons back in the mid-50s to early 60s. And this really is, Ames is my home. It always will be. But, Nebraska was always a second home to me. Lincoln, Nebraska. My grandparents were here. We spent a lot of holidays in Lincoln. I was a diehard Husker football fan growing up. And, it's really cool to walk the same sidelines as my grandfather. My parents both went to Nebraska. So, we have a lot of ties to this place. And we absolutely love it here. The fan base is as good as any in the country, John. You know that. We fill the arena every night, and the facilities are second to none. So we absolutely love it here, and hoping to do something that's never been done in the history of the program this season.
Is it harder to build a program or sustain a program?
Well, it depends on the era. It's so unique what we're doing right now. And you look at the midseason editions with programs, it's just a crazy time. I think it's harder to build it right now. And, when we built it at Iowa State, we did it with transfers, and there weren't a lot of programs that were doing it that way at the time. And we were able to get Royce White and Chris Babb and, Chris Allen, Will Clyburn, Corey Lucius. I could go on and on with the transfers that we did, but we also had some really good 4-year players. And you look at, Monte Morris and George Niang and Matt Thomas and Naz Long, again, those were the guys really that took it over the hump. So, when we took over here, we had one player on the roster. And, he averaged 2 points the year before. It's the largest rebuild in Power 5 history. So it was hard to rebuild it. And then year 2, you go through COVID. But now that we've gotten it to, and see the players that we need to continue on with, now we're going to be able to keep it. Retention's a big thing. And then obviously the portal and all those things that you have to do to build a roster. We've got 2 really good freshmen that I'm excited about next year with Jacob Lanier and Colin Rice that I absolutely love. But we know there's going to be some holes to fill. So, building it, yes, it's taken us a while to get here, but I think we can sustain it.
Fred, there's so much dialogue now about all the things that are going on with mid-season additions and personnel in college basketball. And there's so many questions about what the guidelines are, not just at this time of year, but always. What is it like to be a power conference head coach in this climate right now when you really don't have any idea what any of the rules are?
Yeah, I mean that's a great way to put it, John. We don't know, and none of us in this position know what's going on. So, listen, I'll say it this way: you just got to do everything you can to put your program in the best position to have sustained success. And whatever those rules are, I see it both ways. Do I like it? No, I don't. With some of the rules that are out here, but at the same time, you have to protect your program. Would I add a midseason guy right now? Absolutely not. I don't think that would be good for this roster. For some programs, maybe it is the right thing for them to do. So I do see it that way. But, until we get rules in place, people are going to take advantage of what the current situation is. But yes, it's made it very difficult in our profession when you don't know what the rules are today and certainly what they're going to be moving forward.
Well, one of the reasons why you don't want to add anybody midseason is because chemistry is really hard to come by in college basketball, and your team definitely has it. And a big reason for that is because of Rink Mass, who's playing like an All-American right now. And it's unique, Fred, because the way you run things with him offensively, he's almost like a point center at times for you guys. What is it like for somebody with your offensive background to have a 5-man that can face the basket and be such a mismatch on the offensive side of the floor?
Well, I think you've seen it, John, with our system is when we have a front court player that can pass, shoot, and dribble. That's what makes this whole thing go. And it started with Royce. Royce obviously wasn't a great shooter, but he did so many other things. We led the nation in threes that year. His best quality was as a passer. I think he's one of the only players to lead a Power 5 program in all 5 statistical categories. And then George Niang saw that and wanted to be a part of it. And the way we used him in that similar role, he wasn't as powerful as Royce, but he would take the other big away from the basket, and that opened up everything for us. And then that's what we've tried to emulate here. And by getting Rink, Rink led us in assists 2 years ago. He was our leading rebounder. He was second in scoring. So those are the guys. In fact, George texted me the other day, and he said he wanted a number 51 jersey, a Husker 51 jersey, because he just loved how we played. So, it has, been great getting him back on the floor. And as I said, John, he just makes this thing, everything go the right way.
And Price Sanford is another guy who, again, looks like an all Big Ten caliber player. How much easier was it to recruit somebody that you would compete it against because he came from a Big Ten school in Iowa?
Well, we tried hard the first go around with Price and obviously weren't successful with it. But, we've got a long history with the Sanford family. Both Peyton and Price went to my camps as kids. And, Price's dad is from Nebraska, and, Price grew up a huge Husker football fan as well. So, there is some history there with the family. And as soon as he went into the portal, he was our first call. He killed us last year when he was at Iowa. And I saw so many things with him. When I watched him as a prep player, not only could he shoot the ball, but I loved his playmaking ability. And he's done that here. He's done a really good job taking care of the basketball. He's had some high assist games. He's rebounded the ball better this year, but we really thought we could put him in a featured role, and he certainly has come through.
Fred, I'm fascinated doing this now as long as I have. As you mentioned, the years can, just go so fast for all of us. Coaches are always fixated on tough losses rather than great wins. I know you've been in some big-time games during your career. For Fred Hoiberg, give me one great win and one tough loss that always seems to resonate.
The tough loss was at Allen Fieldhouse back in 2013-14 season. And we had a 2-point lead. We had a really good free throw shooter on the line, made the first with 7 seconds left and missed the second one. And then, the foul or not foul up 3. And at Kansas, with as physical as they are, one of my bigs was fouled out at the time. I just felt we were going to play because I knew Kansas was going to run chop. They run it at the end of every game. And we'd gone through it about 5 times in shoot-around that morning, and we messed up the coverage. And Tyrus McGee made an unbelievable contest on Ben McLemore. It hit the top of the square and somehow banked in, and they ended up beating us in overtime. That one has always haunted me. As far as big wins, the win against North Carolina in the tournament to get us to the 16 after George Niang had broken his foot, I really think we would have been, a national championship contender that year with George healthy. And that certainly was a special one. And I'll throw that Illinois game in. That was unbelievable. On the road with this group that we've gone through a lot with. And again, hopefully that leads to something really special this season.
And Fred, not to continue to bring up bad memories, but also give me one recruit that you desperately wanted, but you just missed out on.
Oh man, John, where do I start? There's been a lot of them. I don't think I want to go down that hole, John. I've missed out on some really good ones, but we've gotten a lot of great ones as well. I'd rather go the other way, John, and talk about the recruiting wins. Fair enough.
Well, Fred, the Nebraska fan base, as you mentioned,
Price Sanford was a tough one. It really was. When he called and said he's going to Iowa, that one hurt me. But again, it worked out for us in the end.
Well, Fred, the Nebraska fan base is one that deserves a winner. As you mentioned, Pinnacle Bank Arena is always sold out. It's always an incredible home court venue. And the thing that amazes me is that Nebraska has never won a game in the NCAA tournament, but these fans continuously show up time after time. So I now am vested in Nebraska basketball. And a couple of weeks ago on this show, I made the announcement that if Nebraska goes to the NCAA tournament and wins a game for the first time in history, I am going to fly to Lincoln. I'm going to find an establishment in the Haymarket district, and I'm going to put my credit card down for 1 hour so that Nebraska fans can have a happy hour to celebrate this accomplishment. The question is, if that all comes to fruition, will you be in attendance?
Hell yes, I will be there, and I'm going to order the top shelf stuff, John. And yes, I would love to welcome you back to Nebraska, and 100%. If we're fortunate enough to win and advance in the tournament, I will join you in that establishment.
Fred, I was fortunate enough to be on the call for your game in the NCAA tournament against Texas A&M in 2024, and there was such a celebration for Nebraska and its fans to be in the NCAA tournament. It was the first time as head coach that you took Nebraska to the tournament. Is there anything that you will do differently this time if you go back for a second time in 3 years?
Listen, that was a very difficult matchup in fact, probably one of the worst matchups we could have gotten with their ability on the perimeter. And, Wade Taylor was unbelievable. He was unconscious in that game. We got off to a great start. Casey got us rolling early in that one. The fans they came down to Memphis in full force. But that one hurt. That ending of that season, that really was a special group. We were playing really well. We just had a good performance, beat Indiana in the Big Ten tournament. Had Illinois down 15, and Terrence Shannon went off on us in the second half. But we were playing well. But when I saw that matchup, I was worried. I knew how athletic and physical that team was. So as far as doing something different, we're going to put a game plan together that gives us the best chance to win whoever we're playing against if we get to that point.
When a program doesn't always go to the NCAA tournament, when you go back a second time in a short period later, is the mindset then one to shift to we're going to potentially win an NCAA tournament game versus we're just grateful to be in the bracket?
Our whole mentality going into, and listen, it's the old coaching mantra. We take it one at a time. And, listen, we've got New Hampshire, in a game, our last non-conference game, and then we'll move on to our 18 league games. And if we're fortunate enough to get to the postseason, we'll put the best game plan together. But yes, 100%, you're going in there. We went in a couple of years ago to win. Last year we won, the tournament in Hawaii. We won the tournament in Las Vegas. We won the tournament in Kansas City this year. Now we got to advance in March, and that's the next step. So listen, I'm not discounting what our guys have done. I'm really proud of them for getting off to the best start in the history of the program, but there's a lot of work to do. Nate Lenzer put it best. He said, guys, we signed up for a marathon and we just finished a 10K. And, there's a lot of work to do. And, we got to stay hungry. And if we go through a tough slide, we got to keep preparing the right way. To your point, John, the biggest thing in this business, you got to find a way to get over big emotional wins, and you got to find a way to put a devastating loss behind you. And there's going to be both as you go through and you navigate a full season. And, I'm confident in this group. I believe in them, and we're going to keep swinging.
Well, Fred, let's wrap on this. What are the biggest long-term keys for this Nebraska team to stay on course and earn not just a berth in the 2026 NCAA tournament, but a favorable seed?
Defending and rebounding, that's the biggest thing with our team. And, I think that was the question people had going into the season. If we're not making shots, are we going to be able to win a rock fight? And we've done a good job winning some of those games. And we lost a key piece with Connor. Connor Asijian helped us win a lot of games last year. We had a horrible shooting night the other night against North Dakota in the getaway game before Christmas. And, that's where Connor can come in and take the lid off for you. And, so we're missing him. So we're going to have to defend. We're going to have to rebound on a nightly basis. Those are the things we always talk about, taking care of the basketball. We've done a great job of that. We need to continue to get better with our physicality in rebounding, and we can't give up easy baskets in transition.
Well, Fred, it's going to be a lot of fun to cover. Appreciate a couple of minutes this morning, and as always, look forward to staying connected along the way.
All right, John. Thank you.
You got it. It's Nebraska head coach Fred Hoiberg. I'm Jon Rothstein, and this is Inside College Basketball Now.